Protests in China have escalated and intensified. They're visible in over 15 cities across the world's most populous nation and the world's most powerful dictatorship. The people of China are rising up against President Xi Jinping. Will there be a breaking point before there is a violent clampdown, or will the government of China, for the first time in a long time, buckle to the demands of the people of that country? I'm Shiv Aroor. Our continued focus on the big meltdown in China continues. The headlines first. As Gujarat gets set for voting in phase 1 tomorrow, India Today speaks to BJP President JP Nadda. He says he's confident of a record-shattering win in the Gujarat election this time.
हम एक बात जरूर कह रहे हैं कि all-time record break होगा. ये जरूर मुझे दिख रहा है.
As Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann campaigns in state of war Gujarat, a massive crisis at his doorstep in Punjab. Trade and labour unions stage huge protests outside his Sangrur residence. Protesters clash with cops and are lathi-charged. After his vulgar attack on Kashmir files, IFI jury chief Nadav Lapid remains defiant, says, "I said what I had to say." Kashmiri pundits hit the streets to protest against his statement. India Today questions Nadav Lapid in a big scoop today. Enforcement Directorate's big charge against Delhi Deputy Chief Minister in the liquor excise probe. Manish Sisodia and aides accused of destroying cell phones and devices worth 1.38 crore that were used in the scam. Meanwhile, Sisodia aide Amit Arora sent to 7 days ED custody. Remember, the Aam Aadmi Party denies all wrongdoing and charges so far. Shocking confession by murderer Aftab Poonawalla. Admits to killing Shraddha in polygraph test. Confesses to throwing body parts in forest. It remains to be seen how much of this is admissible in court. The images coming out of China are, to say the least, historic. Images of this kind are the last thing that you would expect to see in a country like China, where public discipline, people not rising up against their government, is the norm, but no longer. The people of China are totally fed up with their government, and that's why you're seeing images of this kind. Massive protests have erupted in different cities, highlighting just how unpopular China's dynamic zero COVID policy really is. Demonstrators on Tuesday held white sheets of paper chanting slogans on campus of Hong Kong's top university in solidarity with protests on the mainland. The small-scale protest inside the University of Hong Kong was a show of support, with demonstrations across China where frustration has peaked over the country's zero COVID policy. Harvard University students gathered on campus in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the US on Tuesday, also to protest against China's COVID-19 measures. Listen to this. Simmering discontent with China's stringent COVID-19 prevention policies 3 years into the pandemic have ignited huge protests in cities thousands of miles away from the mainland. Demonstrations in solidarity with citizens suffering have sprung up, like we showed you in Hong Kong, also in Toronto, Canada, New York, the United States, London, England, and many others as well. Total solidarity with the people of China. And amidst these continuing COVID-19 rules since 3 years, frustrated residents of China's Jinan were seen trying to break out of lockdown, scuffling with police in hazmat suits in a video released on Tuesday. These images show residents in Jinan, Shandong chanting "Lift the lockdown" while pushing barricades in confrontation with the police in the Liksha district of the city. There's no propaganda here, there is no exaggeration. The wave of civil disobedience is unprecedented in mainland China since President Xi Jinping assumed power a decade ago. Frustration is mounting over principally his signature COVID policy nearly 3 years into the pandemic. But as these violent protests spill across China's biggest cities and towns, the ruling Communist Party has defended its crackdown on its people as necessary to crack down on infiltration and, I quote, hostile forces. But the world is watching and global economies have condemned Xi Jinping's crackdown on his own people. It's getting from bad to worse. Take a look at this report. Protests seeking freedom from zero COVID norms spread to more cities of China. From Xinjiang in the west to Shanghai in the east to the capital city of Beijing, angry demonstrations are raging and intensifying. Fresh protests have also erupted in Guangzhou and Jian. Mainland China's biggest wave of civil disobedience since the 1989 Tiananmen protests come as its economy sputters after growing at a breakneck rate for decades. Blank sheets of paper have become a protest symbol in China. The government is using drones to snoop on citizens. Amidst this massive outrage, the Xi Jinping government has hinted at relaxing zero COVID curbs to quell public anger, saying it will take steps to minimize the impact of sustained COVID lockdowns.
Implementing sufficient measures would be enough. Since not everybody can make a living from home and many people are under a lot of financial pressure, they can't bear being in lockdown for too long. I think protesting is reasonable.
China is following a draconian lockdown policy, often barricading cities with heavy security deployment. The protests in the last few days have raised political temperatures, with even calls for Xi's ouster being made, something unheard of in China.
Just identify the close contacts and quarantine them. There is no need to quarantine the whole building or the whole neighborhood. Not everyone is a close contact.
The world is watching the protests against the Chinese government closely. The United States has expressed concern over the state of Chinese residents.
We support the right of people everywhere to peacefully protest, to make known their views, their concerns, and their frustrations.
Thank you very much for having me.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has also hit out at China, stating that the UK's golden era with China is over.
Now let's be clear, the so-called golden era is over. Instead of listening to their people's protests, the Chinese government has chosen to crack down further.
Will the simmering discontent with China's stringent COVID-19 prevention policies 3 years into the pandemic prove to be a setback in any way whatsoever for Xi Jinping? Bureau Report, India Today. And now protesters have taken to the streets of Tokyo as well. Images from Wednesday from Tokyo, Japan, of protesters supporting the Chinese public uprising against its government. These are, remember, locals who've called for that country's leader to step down amidst the severe anti-COVID restrictions in the biggest demonstration against the Xi Jinping government in decades now. Dozens of protesters, mostly Chinese nationals, held signs in Japanese, Chinese and English, chanting slogans including "No more lockdown, we want freedom," and "Step down." Many who had gathered wore masks and sunglasses, not just because of COVID-19, but out of concern that they might be recognized by Chinese authorities and that their families back home could be persecuted. They could face repercussions. Images, stunning images coming in from Tokyo, Japan, where the anti-Chinese government protests have spread to there as well. Some of these images are from China. And we've got fresh images that we're bringing to you of a protest from Japan. The images of the men in the hazmat suits, of course, are from Jinan in China. That's a clash you see between locals and the police. But the other images that we've just broken to you, these are not the correct images. Let's show our viewers the Tokyo images that we're talking right now. Apologies for that. We'll get you those correct images from Tokyo in just a minute from now. The protests in China's cities against Xi Jinping's iron fist COVID policy is now spread across the world, and I mean that literally, from the United States to Canada to the United Kingdom. Solidarity with the Chinese public protesting and rising up against stringent zero COVID norms and policies has gone global and gone viral. It's not just in China, but the world has also joined the anti-Xi protests. Take a look at this.
In defiance of forced isolation, refusing to be confined to homes. More so when life elsewhere has rumbled back to normal. But the wave of Chinese civil disobedience against the country's harsh zero COVID policy is no longer limited to the mainland. Protesters in Hong Kong gathered in solidarity with rare displays of public anger in China. In the global financial hub's main business district, demonstrators paid tribute to the victims of a fire in China's far west. 10 people died in the blaze last week in the city of Urumqi because emergency crews were too slow to respond due to COVID restrictions. Like their counterparts in China, protesters in Hong Kong too came clutching blank papers. The unspoiled sheets turned into a roaring public statement over Beijing's iron-fisted measures against dissent. Far away in London, protesters gathered outside the Chinese embassy on Sunday, chanting for freedom and democracy in an authoritarian China. The world has begun to take note of the growing Chinese unrest. The Biden administration in the United States criticized Beijing's stringent COVID strategy. In a statement, a White House National Security Council spokesperson said that United States supported the right of people to peacefully protest in China. Germany also put on the record its position on demonstrations in the world's most populous country.
Wir haben die Meldung von den Protesten in mehreren großen chinesischen Städten natürlich zur Kenntnis genommen, auch Berichte über teilweise gewaltsames Vorgehen der Sicherheitskräfte gegen die Demonstranten vor Ort.
An unprecedented challenge to President Xi Jinping barely a month after he perpetuated his stranglehold on power. Bureau Report, India Today.
And here you've got breaking images from yesterday of protests by Chinese and Japanese nationals on the streets of Tokyo in solidarity with the people of China rising up against the government. Let's just try and listen into these protests from Tokyo. that many of the protesters you see here in Tokyo are hiding their faces because they happen to be Chinese nationals living or visiting Japan, and they are hiding their faces because they fear that their families back home in China could face repercussions and they could be persecuted. That is the level of fear of what the Chinese government may do after these protests in China have escalated and put the government there in an embarrassing global position. This will have an economic impact. This will have a global impact on China's reputation, which is already in tatters. And this new visual that you're getting is coming in from Japan and its capital, Tokyo, where Chinese and Japanese nationals have come together in this fresh eruption of protests against the Chinese government. Dozens of protesters, mostly Chinese nationals, have been chanting slogans of no more lockdown, we want freedom and step down. They've gathered in masks and sunglasses to hide their identities for obvious reasons. And the China meltdown will, as you can see this week, continue to be one of our big priority stories on 5 Live and on India Today. We're taking a very quick break. On the other side, very important update from the Aftab Shraddha murder, because Aftab faces his narco test finally tomorrow. We'll tell you what has led up to it, what one can expect, what he's said during his polygraph test, and what else we've got lined up.
Men and women who built Indian industry, and the young guns who are shaping tomorrow's India. From storied careers to unicorn dreams.
The equity market is a dynamic space that needs sharper insights and perfect timing. What stock, what fund, what to pick and what to sell.
How do you make money on the markets? And what are the superior strategies for a winning portfolio?
Your questions answered by 30 years undisputed leadership.
Only with Business Today Television.
Being a Muslim in this country and facing all of this every day is not funny.
This outburst by a Manipal University student came after his professor called him a terrorist.
How can you call me like that? No problem. In front of so many people in a class.
The Muslim student was called 2611 shooter Kasab by his professor in front of the entire class.
Sorry, I told you. You're a professional, you're teaching. Yeah, sorry.
The professor, who can be heard offering an apology, has been suspended by the university.
We condemn such kind of incident. Okay. As you know that we are an institute of eminence and we always believe in Sarvadharma, we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and this thing. Appropriate action is being taken care of on that, and we are taking a suitable action and as per the deemed to be fit, and the student is getting counseled and the professor or the lecturer is getting suspended from the system.
The university has barred the professor from teaching at the institute and initiated an inquiry.
And now a very important update on the Shraddha murder case. Top sources in the investigation team have told India Today that Aftab Amin Poonawalla has confessed to killing his girlfriend Shraddha during the all-important polygraph or lie detector test that has been going on for the last few days. He showed absolutely no regret, say investigators, about committing the crime that he confessed to. He further admitted to having several partners and disposing of Shraddha's body parts in the jungle as initially suspected and reported by the investigative team. Aftab Amin Poonawalla will now undergo the narco test that's scheduled for tomorrow in Delhi as the police look to prepare a watertight case against him. His polygraph test sessions have concluded and the report is likely to be out in a few hours from now at some point today. It's been nearly 3 weeks since Delhi's butchery came to light after that India Today news break, while the Delhi police has managed to gather crucial evidence in the form of an instrument that was used to cut up Shraddha's body, apparently, to bloodstains in Aftab and Shraddha's flat in Delhi's Mehrauli. They're yet to find all of Shraddha's body parts, including her skull. Shreya Chatterjee is live with us. She's been tracking every step of this investigation along with India Today's crime team that broke the story first. Shreya, the polygraph test is done. Many things have evidently been said by Aftab during that polygraph test, and now the stage is set for the narco test that takes place tomorrow. Take us through, the significance of what we've seen over the last few days with the polygraph test and what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, Shiv, it's an extremely crucial day for the investigation by the Delhi police in the Shraddha Walker murder case tomorrow. Given the fact that it's the narco test that's going to be conducted on Aftab Poonawalla after we saw 4 sessions of polygraph, which included the pre and the main that was conducted on him. Now, what we've already learned from our sources that he has admitted to have murdered Shraddha during that polygraph test and also agreed upon the fact that he indeed disposed of the body parts in the Mehrauli forest. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be admissible in court, but it gives the Delhi police the direction that they are in the right track while they're investigating it. Now, in the narco, what the Delhi police is interestingly looking forward is that if they get some key breakthrough which could help them gather some further evidence in making it a watertight case. It is also being learned that if this narco test remains inconclusive, in all likelihood, the Delhi police would go for a brain mapping of Aftab. So this is clearly what is happening as per the investigation, because unfortunately 6 months have passed in between the murder and the investigation, and scientific evidence gathering is all the Delhi police is up to right now to make this a watertight case against Aftab Poonawalla.
Shreya, thanks very much for that. Important narco test taking place tomorrow. We've brought you every single news break so far in the case. We won't let you down. We will keep you ahead on what happens overnight today and then tomorrow as well. Shreya, thanks for that update. But very importantly, what is the process of a narco test? It's a word that you've heard plentifully with crime stories you've seen over the last few years. It's basically a psychological test with scientific tools. Now, a chemical called sodium pentothal 4 is the drug that is injected into the body of the patient, in this case, Aftab Poonawalla tomorrow. The patient then turns dissociative. The suspect is then questioned in that semi-sedated state. An uninhibited patient, according to the theory behind narcoanalysis, expresses the truth and doesn't try to suppress an untruth. The process is done under a doctor or a physician's supervision for obvious reasons, because there is an IV and a drug is injected into the body of the person undergoing this analysis. So that's what's going to happen to Aftab. Now, the police investigation to build what they hope will be a watertight case against Aftab will lead to the murderer's narco test on Thursday. India Today has already accessed the questionnaire, the rough questionnaire, which entails about 50 questions that will be asked to Aftab. Take a look.
Did you kill Shraddha? Did you chop Shraddha's body? Where did you dispose Shraddha's head? How did you clean the crime scene? How many women did you date after killing Shraddha? These are among the over 50 questions that probe officials will fire at Aftab during the narco test. The stage is set for Delhi butcher Aftab to unravel the mind of the psychopath. And help the police map his sinister plot to derail the probe. The official request to the forensic team has been sent. The test, in presence of experienced doctors, will be videographed. The Delhi police has been running against time to complete Aftab's narco test after a nod from a Delhi court. Cops have readied as many as 50 questions to shoot at Aftab. who will be injected with relaxant sodium pentanol before the test, which will render him incapable of lying. The questions will involve straightforward questions like did he kill Shraddha and cut her body into pieces. Aftab will also be asked where did he dispose the head and body parts apart from the whereabouts of the saw used to dismember the body. While not admissible in court, Aftab's answers will give cops a watertight case. It may also help the Delhi police cut through the web of deception by Aftab, who has taken the investigators on a wild goose chase, changing his statements and giving contradictory revelations. Will the narco test help in ensuring justice for Shraddha Walkar? With Arvind Ojha in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
And we've got some more breaking news coming in now. Liger star actor Vijay Deverakonda appeared before the Enforcement Directorate in Hyderabad today in connection with a Foreign Exchange Management Act or FEMA investigation that's currently on. The ED, the Enforcement Directorate, is investigating alleged payments and sourcing of funds regarding the recent movie Liger, which was a bit of a flop at the box office, but an investigation into its funding is underway by the Enforcement Directorate. And Vijay Deverakonda, we understand, appeared earlier today in front of the Enforcement Directorate office in Hyderabad. Earlier, the Enforcement Directorate had issued summons to Puri Jagannath and Charmi, both associated with the film, for questioning on doubts over foreign exchange violations with regard to the production of the film Liger, which stars Vijay Deverakonda and Ananya Pandey. So this is the story that we're breaking to you right now. We're yet to hear from Vijay Deverakonda's team. We're trying to reach out to them. The Enforcement Directorate suspects illegal investments in the Liger project, and that's what this questioning is regarding. We'll get you an update on that as soon as we hear back from both the Enforcement Directorate as well as Vijay Deverakonda's team. And coming up next, anger has simmered over an insulting remark by an Israeli filmmaker judge at IFFI over India's Kashmir Files, the Indian film Kashmir Files. But that has exploded beyond just protests. India Today has scooped an exclusive interview with the man who made those remarks, and we've put the hard questions to him. That national exclusive is next.
I would say that we have done a lot of reforms on the direct taxes. The corporate tax have been brought down to 22%, and new manufacturing units that are set up to 24 March will only pay 15% tax. So that's a good, it's stabilized. Maybe some reforms are needed on the personal income tax also, because the tax rates go up from 5% to 30%, and then there are a number of surcharges there and a lot of exemptions are there. So maybe we need to tinker with some of these provisions. It may give relief to some people and may not give relief to some other people. But yes, there is a need to simplify the tax rates. There is a need to simplify the process of the personal income tax. Now, if they say a relief, I don't know what exactly CII means in terms of relief. Because if you look at tax to GDP ratio for our country, we are still very low. And there's a need to have more taxes. But yes, I agree.
Remarks by an Israeli judge at an Indian government-sponsored film festival where he called the Kashmir Files vulgar and a film of propaganda has outraged people here in the country and polarized many. And anger has simmered for the second day running over Nadav Lapid's words about the Kashmir Files. Kashmiri pundits today staged a protest against the Israeli filmmaker, accusing him of insulting the pain of the community and mocking their suffering of the past. They've demanded answers from the Indian government as to why this Israeli filmmaker was given a platform in India, urging them to seek action against him. The protests come 2 days after Nadav Lapid, during the International Film Festival of India, or IFFI, called the Kashmir Files a propaganda and vulgar movie which should not have been screened at the event. Filmmaker of Kashmir Files, Vivek Agnihotri, condemned the remark and has announced a follow-up to the much acclaimed yet controversial and polarizing film this year, which will be titled The Kashmir Files Unreported.
अब तो मैंने दृढ़ निश्चय कर लिया है, हमारे पास इतना रिसर्च था, इतने वाकये, इतने किस्से हैं, इतनी सारे सत्य हैं जिसपे एक नहीं 10 फिल्में बन सकती थी, पर हमने एक फिल्म बनाने का निश्चय किया था। लेकिन आज जब इनने ये बात करी है तो अब तो मैंने निश्चय कर लिया है कि मैं पूरा का पूरा सत्य, पूरा रिसर्च लेके आऊंगा और उसका नाम होगा द कश्मीर फाइल्स अनरिपोर्टेड, और ये मैं इसी साल के अंदर अंदर लेके आऊंगा। ये मैंने आज दृढ़ निश्चय कर लिया है।
इफी के फेस्टिवल में इस व्हाइट कॉलर टेररिस्ट ने एक बम फोड़ा है जो चेयरमैन था जूरी का। आई कंसिडर दिस एज अ टेरर अटैक, सो आई वेरी स्ट्रांगली फील कि ये जो चेयरमैन ऑफ द जूरी था, इसने इसको प्लांट किया गया था वहां पे और उसने कश्मीरी पंडित्स को बदनाम किया। उसने देश के खिलाफ एक मुहिम चलाई है और वो अपना काम करके चला गया।
मुझे ये लग रहा है यह एक बड़ी एक साजिश है, क्योंकि इस वक्त हिंदुस्तान का कद वर्ल्ड में बढ़ रहा है, साथ साथ ही नरेंद्र मोदी जी का भी जो कद बढ़ रहा है उसको कहीं जख्म पहुंचाने की कोशिश हो रही है। जिस भी कंट्री का वो जूरी था उस जूरी को पहले अपनी कंट्री में देखना चाहिए, वहां की ह्यूमन राइट्स वायलेशन वो किस तरह करते हैं। उसका हक नहीं बनता कि कश्मीरी कम्युनिटी कौम पर कोई उंगली उठाए, और ये एक शर्मनाक बात है और हम इसकी पूरी निंदा करते हैं।
And Nadav Lapid broke his silence only here on India Today. Big scoop, the only channel he chose to speak on and take the questions off. Here's Rahul Kaval interrogating Nadav Lapid.
I want to start by asking you, Nadav, what is it in particular about the film and the way that it's made by Vivek Agnihotri, Anupam Kher, that you found offensive, vulgar, propaganda and disturbing? Let's start from there.
Yes, for me the film is full or based on cinematic manipulations. The way it uses image, the way it uses the sound, the way the scenes are constructed, the way it shows the bad ones and the good ones. You know, moreover, I had the feeling that exactly since we are talking about such a huge topic, such a complex topic, such a tragic topic, such a tragedy, exactly these kind of events, these kind of tragic events, they oblige us to make serious movies. They oblige us to be as serious as possible. And this movie for me was exactly the opposite. This movie for me was really a series of basic and cheap cinematic manipulations.
So what is Schindler's List? What is, for example, Fauda, which was being promoted at the Indian International Film Festival in Goa, which again is an Israeli representation of what's happening in that part of the woods, whether it is about ISIS, whether it is about the Palestinian cause. A lot of people would find that to be propaganda. How do you determine what's propaganda? 250 crore rupees were made by the Kashmir Files on the Indian box office. There were obviously lakhs of people across the country who thought it was a film that they wanted to watch.
First of all, you know, I don't have a key to distinguish between propaganda and non-propaganda, and none of us have this key in his pocket. You know, I make movies that are very often polemic, that are very often controversial. These movies, my movies, they gained awards all over the world in the most prestigious places, in Cannes, in Berlin, and also in Goa Film Festival. I think that almost all of them were shown there and they're awarded. And yes, there are people who talk to them with the same gravity that I was talking about Kashmir Files. There are people, not few, who write or tell very, very, very hard things using the harshest words, and I accept it. This is what, especially when you do movies.
You haven't answered my question. I'm saying, what is Fauda? What is Schindler's List? Is that not propaganda in the same way?
I'll answer your question if you let me finish.
Okay. Go on.
Next. Now, you don't expect me now to make an analysis of Schindler's List or of not any other movie. What I can say is that even the most terrible tragedies, the most terrible things that happen might give birth to propaganda and to manipulative movies. And I want to make one thing clear, extremely clear and totally clear. Not for even 1 second, I thought or I imagined to talk about the tragedy of Kashmir. Not for even 1 second I've been standing there and talking about the historical facts. Not for even 1 second I imagined to put myself inside this historical debate. I don't feel that I'm appropriate to do it, and it's not my role. I was talking as a filmmaker, as an artist, about the cinematic text, and only about the cinematic text. And each attempt to take my words and to turn them to a position inside the Kashmir case is just a cheap manipulation. It's a cheap manipulation in order to incite people against what I said and to make political profit out of it.
No, but you seem to have said, I have that statement of yours where you seem to be suggesting that this is the view of the entire jury. I spoke to other members of the jury yesterday. They've also come out and spoken in public, and they say that you would make this kind of a comment was never discussed. You came and said, we were, all of us, disturbed and shocked by the 15th film, The Kashmir Files. That felt to us like a propaganda, vulgar movie, inappropriate for an artistic competitive section of a prestigious film festival. The other jury members say, that's your view, that's not their view. They, in fact, are offended and they find your comments vulgar.
My statement and my opinions were shared by all the jury members. We were sitting, all of us, at the screening room, having the same feelings after the screening, saying the same words. Everyone was aware of what is going to be said. I understand, and I have emails and WhatsApps that prove it. I understand that under pressure or fear or anxiety, people can suddenly change their statements, and I don't want to judge them. For me, it's not a personal thing. Understand that someone can be afraid, can feel under pressure, and try to change and to modify what happened. But what I said was clearly.
No, but what evidence do you have to back this? Because I had on the show filmmaker Sudipto Sen, who was one of the jury members. He says Nadav said this on his own. This wasn't discussed. This wasn't known to us. We were not part of the same script. Nadav went off, shot his mouth off, and he's embarrassed all of us. Where is the evidence? If you're saying you have evidence, show us the evidence that the other jury members backed you on this.
I have a suggestion, since I guess that you consider yourself as a serious journalist. I hope so. You can call, for instance, the French jury member, Pascal. You can call, for instance, the Spanish jury member, Javier, and ask them.
No, so we can do that. Because the others who've spoken have said that this was your view. And you're insisting live once again that this wasn't your view alone, that the other members knew that you would be saying this?
So why are you saying that you can do it? Do it. Just do it. Just take, I guess that you have a mail or phone. Call them. Ask them.
And what evidence do you have to back? You're saying you've got evidence. Can you show us some of that evidence where you can prove that the other filmmakers were on board when you made these comments?
I'm not going to do such a thing because I understand the sensibility and of the situation of people who are afraid and feel that they might pay a price for what they said. And I'm sure that you and all the viewers, we respect above everything the freedom of speech and the freedom of people to express their opinion.
But you haven't answered my question, Nadav. Since you are a filmmaker, let me challenge you by asking you just this. Is Schindler's List propaganda? Who determines what is... It's made from a particular point of view. Is Fauda propaganda? You know Fauda, of course. Is that propaganda? Who determines? It's made from a certain point of view for a certain community, and not just in that community, even outside. People seem to have watched Fauda and the Kashmir Files and Schindler's List and really found it to be a very gripping watch. So who's somebody else who's not a filmmaker to stand up and say that you think this is propaganda?
No one determines. No one can determine if one film is propaganda and one film is not. And one might think that Schindler's List, for instance, is a propaganda or not. And I totally respect and accept the fact that there are many people who love this movie, who think that it's a brilliant movie, as well as I respect the fact that there are people who think terrible things about my movies. But I, this year, was invited to Goa as the president of the jury because of my achievements as a filmmaker, in order to express my opinion, my view, and the view of the jury about the movies. So exactly as much as the people who love the movie have, of course, the full right, it goes without saying, to claim that it's a brilliant, unbelievable movie, I have the right to claim that it's the opposite. And what I did is my duty towards the festival that invited me. The festival which invited me in order to express my opinion about the movies and to say the truth as I see it. Of course it's subjective. We don't talk here about a scientific thing.
No, but you also seem to have sparked a massive diplomatic controversy. Israel's Consul General Khob Shoshani met Anupam Kher, the actor of the Kashmir File, and had to apologize on behalf of the Israeli government to the government of India.
I think that politicians, they have their way of make profits out of cases like this. I think that the Israeli politicians and the ambassador did and abused in an ugly, disgusting, and manipulative ways this case. You know, I'm a private person. I have the right to say what I think. I don't need to get authorization for this, neither from the Israeli ambassador nor from no one else. I'm not their property. I don't need to get advice from there to what I say and what I don't say. I was talking as a private person and as an artist and as a filmmaker, as the president of the jury, invited by this jury to give his opinion about the movies. When the Israeli ambassador condemned what I said about the tragedy of Kashmir, he's doing exactly the same manipulation because, as I said, and I will say it if I'll have to another 1,000 times, I was never ever speaking about the Kashmir tragedy, and I totally not taking back what I said, but I'm really sorry if people were hurted because of this. I was talking about the movie, The Kashmir Files, that was done based on this tragedy. And when the Israeli ambassador condemns what I'm saying and claiming that he is not a film expert, but he thinks that the Kashmir File is not a propaganda movie, first of all, it is right. Second of all, as he's saying himself and witnessing himself, he is not a film expert, so maybe it's not extremely appropriate to give his opinion. I mean, it's his subjective opinion. Third of all, you know, he was standing there on stage saying that unfortunately he doesn't have time to watch movies, so he doesn't know a lot about cinema. So I don't know to which extent, when he's claiming that it's a propaganda movie or not a propaganda movie, what exactly does it mean? But all of this is a cheap manipulation, cheap political manipulation. It is done by people in Israel and also by certain people in India about what I was saying.
You know, you seem to have had multiple run-ins with the government of Israel in the past. I have over here some comments you made where you're saying that there is something rotten about the soul of Israel. You're saying that Israeli sickness or nature is characterized by young Israeli men, muscular, smiling. They are proud of being Israeli. This is a dichotomist vision of existence, us versus them all. So in multiple interviews that you've given, you seem to have been constantly at odds with the policies of the government of Israel.
Listen, I make films from the bottom of my heart. I'm Israeli. I grew up in Israeli. I passed through the whole Israeli process, high school, military service. And of course, when I see things that I dislike in my country, it hurts me. It hurts my feeling and it hurts my heart. And my movies, which sometimes are critical and sometimes are harsh towards my country, come exactly from this place, because this place is dear to my heart. I'm sure you feel the same thing about India, and I'm sure you know very well, and everyone knows very well, that when something is dear to your heart, first of all, you're emotional about it, and second of all, your obligation, your only obligation, is to claim and to say the truth as you see it.
Who invited you to be the head of the jury in India? Because now there's a lot of outcry over this invitation being extended to you and the fact that you came and said the kind of things that you did about this particular film. Who invited you? How did you decide to come and become head of the jury at IFFI this year?
I was invited by the festival. I don't know exactly. I got an email from the festival. You know, I was a jury member in dozens and dozens of film festivals. I was a jury member in the official competition in Berlin Film Festival, in sidebars in Cannes, presidents of a sidebar section in Venice, official competition in Locarno. I've been jury member and jury president in dozens of film festivals. And when I was invited to go, I was extremely happy because, as I said, I think that almost all my movies, or maybe all my movies, were shown there because my movie won the two very prestigious prizes because it's such a prestigious film festival, and because I wanted to get to know India.
Okay, you've had your say. You're alleging that other filmmakers were on board with your comments, which is what other filmmakers who were part of the jury have said isn't true. They claim to have spoken to some of the other members of the jury. We will follow this up. But I must say that what you've said, not just to members of the Kashmiri community, and you haven't really been able to explain, say, Schindler's List or Fauda, and whether you find Fauda to be propaganda or not. You never answered that question. Do you think Fauda is propaganda? The serial from Israel, which was being publicized and was the star attraction at the IFFI this year. I mean, that seems like propaganda. If you're looking at it from a Palestinian perspective, that looks like propaganda.
No, I find it unbelievable the way you repeat again and again the same question, even though I'm answering. I said again and again, and I'm not going to repeat it another time because I said it already. I said that there is no label propaganda or no non-propaganda. I said that it's the personal opinion of someone, and I can totally understand how also people can see my films maybe as propaganda. I respect it. Of course, I disagree, but I respect it. This was my opinion and the opinion of people around me. I was invited there to give my opinion about the movies, give awards to the best movies, to talk about their qualities, and also to talk about what I think about the other movies. And this is exactly what I said.
Okay,
thanks a lot.
We'll leave it over there for the time being. And the maker of Kashmir Files, Vivek Agnihotri, has just tweeted, very brief reaction to this interview that Rahul Kanwal has just done with Nadav Lapid. He says, world's most honest man. He's put out just a small little clip where Nadav Lapid talks about how, calling a film propaganda is a personal opinion and that nobody can, authoritatively label a film as either propaganda or not propaganda. So Vivek Agnihotri has obviously been watching India Today, and he's tweeted about this interview now.
a sarcastic take saying world's most honest man on that clip where Nadav Lapid admits that this was a personal dig. And up next, stuff that I really love, all the action from the Indo-US Yuddh Abhyas exercise that's been quietly taking place in the Himalayas. Our man Abhishek Bhalla is on the ground to get you all the action. That's next.
Dhanush's upcoming trilingual film with director Sekhar Kamula was launched in Hyderabad. The project was commenced with a customary puja with the producers in attendance. The makers are planning to shoot and release the film simultaneously in Tamil, Telugu and Hindi. Dhanush was last seen in director Selva Raghavan's Nani Varuvan, which was released recently, and now the actor will be seen in director Venki Atluri's bilingual film Vathi, which is all set to roll out in theatres next year.
Educational Institute la junior teacher.
He also has Captain Miller and Aira Thil Oruvun 2 in pipeline. Superstar Rajnikant's celebrated film Baba is all set to re-release in theatres on his birthday. Ahead of the same, the makers decided to add some new scenes to the film, and in fact, the actor has already completed dubbing for it, and his pictures are going viral on social media. Interestingly, Rajnikant not only played the lead role in the film, but also produced it. The cast included Manisha Koirala and Ashish Vidyarthi, among others, while Prabhu Deva, Ramya Krishnan, Sarth Babu, and Raghav Lawrence are some of the actors who did a cameo in the film. As far as Rajnikant's other projects are concerned, he's currently busy shooting for Jailer with filmmaker Nelson Dilip Kumar. Entertainment Bureau, India Today.
Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today, for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now.
And the 18th edition of the annual Indo-US Joint Army Exercise Yuddh Abhyas 2022 is currently underway in the picturesque town of Auli in Uttarakhand. Indian Army soldiers are displaying hand-to-hand combat skills during this joint training exercise. India Today's Abhishek Bhalla is on site to bring you all the action.
War games, special heli-borne sorties, jungle warfare, counter-terror operations, unarmed combat, search and rescue. Action-packed scenes from Indo-US war exercise Yuddh Abhyas underway at Uttarakhand's Auli, just 100 kilometers from the line of actual control with China.
Exercise Yuddh Abhyas is an annual exercise which is conducted between the US Army and the Indian Army with an aim to learn from each other the best practices to enhance upon our TTPs, that is the tactics, techniques and procedures.
The focus of the 2-week-long exercise at 9,500 feet above sea level is operations in high-altitude areas. The terrain is rugged and treacherous, and the winters can be harsh.
This special training node in Auli at 9,500 feet is the first of its kind for high altitude operations. In fact, soldiers deployed here are being assigned to carry out drills even at 12,000 feet, and this is where this particular Indo-US exercise, Yudh Abhyas, is a unique one.
This is the first time the exercise is taking place at these heights in the Himalayas. Soldiers from the Indian Army's 9 Assam Regiment and US Army's Denali Squadron, 1st Squadron, 40th Cavalry Regiment participating. With 350 troops from each side, this is a battalion-level war drill, showcasing some fearsome hand-to-hand combat.
Unarmed combat is a critical aspect of warfare today, and what is being rehearsed here is exactly how troops in a situation where they cannot use their weapons but are forced to get involved in a situation where they have to take on the enemy without their weapons. That's when this kind of training and skills come in extremely handy.
Modern weapons of the US Army were also on display. A kite trained by the Indian Army to prey on drones displayed its prowess. The bird of flight taking down an airborne drone after being released by its trainer. With Abhishek Bhalla in Oli, Bureau Report, India Today.
And coming up next, 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita, the hijab showdown is back and big in Karnataka with a big hypocritical twist just months before the elections. It's incredible. The big story with Akshita next.